It has been many years since I last built and painted miniatures, and recently I have regained the itch to create art that reflects the fictional battles that we engross ourselves in. However, with a limited budget, it is important to consider carefully where I start again. Warhammer 40,000 is where I last found myself building noise marines, making my own Tyranid hive fleet, and dabbling in the emotionless metals of Necrons. This is Cursed Crusader Arts. In my local hobby store, I was rummaging through their selection of models, trying to find something that would fit my small budget of barely £50. Not only did I need models, but also the tools to build and paint them. A Getting Started with Warhammer 40,000 magazine was for sale and came with two models, a Primaris Space Marine and a Necron Warrior. I was then lucky enough to find a Citadel Beginners paint set, which came with the paint, clippers and a brush. With a little cash left in my budget, I was able to purchase some Humbrol poly cement and a set of files, with a new hobby mat and knives. It was important to examine the models as they have changed considerably since my last foray into miniature building. I started with the Primaris Space Marine, and although I'm not a huge fan of their blocky looking armour, there was something completely new to me. Clipping off the pieces and laying them out helped me to understand the natural pose of the model and decide on any sub-assemblies that I may need, and to look a little closer into some of the smaller details such as the purity seal on the leg and the detailed vambrace on the left hand. I then ensured that I took the time to completely clean the models of excess plastic from the sprues as well as the mould lines. This would help the model have a more realistic appearance and ensure that they would not show up from any highlights or dry brushing that I would do later. During this time, I considered which chapter this Space Marine would be from. The Ultramarines were the original choice for the magazine as well as the paint kit. Blues fading into greys and whites, with a few red and gold details, would be straightforward with what I was provided with. First of all, I had considered the Minotaurs, a successor chapter of the Ultramarines. Using the Balthasar gold and the Mephiston red paints would lend nicely to this, providing something very different to what was expected. However, the absence of any different gold or bronze paints to support the base coat had me consider alternative options. After the cleanup duties were mostly complete, I began gluing the kit together. These were straightforward to put together, especially with the poly cement that would melt and fuse the plastic into a single solid piece. However, I noticed that there was a thin gap between the two parts of the Space Marine's body, and so I used a pair of pliers to gently squeeze the pieces together, giving the glue time to do its work. After this, I glued him to the base that had been provided, giving me my first sub-assembly. Next up was the arms. The nature of these starter kits meant that they were designed to be push-fit together, using the holes and tabs moulded into specific positions to provide an exciting and dynamic pose. The stance is strong, bold, and proud. The chainsword is held lower, but still at the ready, whilst the Space Marine aims his bolt rifle at an enemy only he can see. Thinking back to when I had previously played Warhammer 40,000, I remembered that my brother had a Space Marine army, and it was perfect for the paints that I had available to me. His army had been painted up as the Crimson Fists, successor chapter of the Imperial Fists, and legendary heroes and survivors of the Orc War Snagrod on Rinnsworld. Looking at some of the new lore around the return of Rabuta Guilliman told me that the Crimson Fists were also one of the first chapters to receive the new Primaris Space Marines to help replenish their diminished numbers, making this a perfect choice for my return to the hobby. After cleaning up some more mould lines that I had missed, it was time for one of my favourite parts of any kit: drilling weapon barrels. I had managed to find my old hobby drill that had somehow evaded me during my previous clear out a few years ago, and now it had a chance to be used once more. I made sure to select the correct size drill bit for the holes in the side of the barrel where excess gas would escape, and then I used a slightly larger drill bit for the exit hole on the front of the barrel. I wanted to expand the hole a little more and use the angled nature of the hobby knife to drill a little further, removing the excess plastic at the front of the barrel without compromising the structure of the model. After dry fitting the second arm, I noticed something was missing. Despite the simplicity of the kit, I had somehow forgotten to attach the Space Marine's head whilst gluing the body together. The large rectangular tab would certainly not fit in the small circular hole that now resembled where the neck should be. So I simply cut the tab off and filed it down to a nice, smooth, round texture. This allowed me to have much more control over the positioning of the head, and after a few different options, I elected to simply have him looking down the sights of his weapon, adding a slight tilt, suggesting that he is aiming, possibly tracking an escaping orc for a single, clean shot. Overall, the kit was nice and clean, straightforward and simple, but I wanted to add something a little extra. The advantage of having a family of crafty people and hobbyists means that I can raid and pilfer the occasional spare bit that may be lying around. One of my favourite things about the Imperium of Man was the excessive amounts of purity seals someone would have attached to them in the artwork. The kit had already attached one purity seal to the right leg, so I opted to have another one attached to his right pauldron. Now that my mind was set on making this Space Marine a Crimson Fist, I knew I needed to reinforce this. Using an orc skull from the Box of Skulls kit meant that I could add a reference to how the Crimson Fists relentlessly hunt down any orcs they come across. Once it was cleaned up, I glued it directly to the base using one of the larger rocks already on the base to support the skull. With these new extras, and some extra cuts and holes into the armour, I had a model ready for painting. I enjoyed getting back into the hobby, and after watching many other content creators and receiving a little encouragement from my family, I think I'm ready to begin stretching my artistic nature once again. With no need to build large armies for playing with, I'm free to take my time and learn about the stories of different universes and make miniatures and art that creates interesting characters that demonstrates the reality of the horrific universes they come from. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video. I hope you enjoyed it. I have many ideas already for great characters from Warhammer and Fallout universes, and I look forward to trying new things and building upon old ones.